You ever notice how when you tell people your problems, they nod, they smile, they maybe say, "Wow, that's tough," and then go right back to scrolling their phone? The truth is, most people don't actually care about your problems. Not because they're evil, not because they're heartless, but because they've got their own storm to deal with. And the more you hand your problems to people who aren't equipped or invested to help, the more powerless you become. Today, I'm going to show you why keeping your struggles close and channeling them into action is one of the most freeing, most powerful things you can ever do. Most people can't carry your burden, and I don't mean that as an insult to humanity. It's just the truth. Everybody is dealing with something. They've got their own set of worries, their own late night thoughts, their own quiet battles they don't tell anyone about. And when you hand them yours, even with the best intentions, you're adding to a load they already struggle to carry. That's not fair to them, and it's not fair to you. See, when you tell someone your problems, you're not just transferring words, you're transferring weight. And the person on the other end might nod, they might smile, they might even say, "I'm so sorry, that's awful." But inside, they might be thinking about their bills, their relationship, their health, their next deadline. They can't take your burden because their hands are already full. It's like showing up at someone's door with a heavy suitcase and saying, "Here, hold this for me for a while." If they're already carrying their own suitcase, they're going to drop something. And in life, that something might be their patience, their trust, or even their respect for you. That's why you've got to be selective about who you unload on. Not everybody has the strength, the wisdom, or even the willingness to hold your weight without breaking under it. Now, some people will say, "But I just need to vent. I'm not looking for solutions." I get it. But here's the problem. Venting to the wrong person is like shouting into a canyon. The echo comes back, but it's empty. You feel a moment of relief, but nothing changes. And sometimes you don't even get relief. You just get silence, or worse, you get judgment. And that's a whole new weight you didn't need to carry. When you share your struggles with someone who isn't prepared to handle them, you risk two things: you burden them, and you weaken yourself. Because every time you open up to the wrong audience, you start doubting if you should have said anything at all. You replay the conversation in your head. You wonder if they're talking about you now. You question if they see you differently. And instead of feeling lighter, you feel heavier. That's why your problems need to be handled like fire. In the right hands, fire gives light, warmth, and safety. In the wrong hands, it burns everything in sight, including you. Choose carefully who gets to hold the match. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for others and for yourself, is to keep your problems within a space that's safe. That might be between you and a journal, between you and a higher power, or between you and that one person in your life who has proven again and again that they can hold weight without letting it crush them. But you can't assume everybody is that person, because they're not. I'm not telling you to shut yourself off from the world. I'm telling you to guard your peace like it's treasure, because it is. The more people you hand it to, the more it gets chipped away. And here's the thing, when you're careful with your peace, when you stop handing your problems to just anyone, you start realizing how much stronger you really are. You stop waiting for someone to save you, and you start saving yourself. And that's when you realize the weight you thought you couldn't carry was building the strength you didn't know you had. The thing about telling people your problems is, the moment those words leave your mouth, you lose control over where they land. You think you're confiding, you think you're being heard. But a lot of the time, what you're really doing is giving someone a new story to tell. And it's not always because they're malicious or out to get you. Sometimes it's just human nature. People talk. People fill silence with stories. And your problem, the thing you're struggling with, can quickly become the plot line of their next conversation. It doesn't take much. One small comment over coffee, one text sent to just one person, and suddenly something you shared in confidence is being picked apart by people who weren't even supposed to know it existed. And the worst part, by the time it gets back to you, it's not even your story anymore. It's been twisted, reworded, exaggerated, sometimes even completely misrepresented. You thought you were sharing for support, but what you really did was hand your life over for public consumption. And when that happens, you can't get it back. Once people have a version of your story in their head, it's almost impossible to rewrite it. That's why oversharing isn't just about talking too much. It's about losing ownership of your own reality. And I get it. Sometimes you think, but I trust this person. Maybe you do. But trust isn't the same as self-control. Even good people slip. Even people you love let things slip, not because they want to hurt you, but because they didn't guard your story the way you would have guarded it yourself. Here's the thing. People are fascinated by problems that aren't their own. It's easier to analyze, gossip about, or dissect someone else's situation than to face their own. And when your problems become someone else's entertainment, you're the one left dealing with the fallout. The moment your private struggle becomes a public conversation, it changes. It stops being about what actually happened and starts being about opinions, assumptions, and guesses. You become a character in someone else's version of events. And that can eat at you, not just because your privacy was violated, but because the noise around your situation starts drowning out your own voice. That's why silence can be one of your greatest strengths. Not the kind of silence that comes from bottling things up until you explode, but the intentional silence that comes from knowing not every detail of your life belongs on someone else's tongue. When you stop telling everybody your problems, you keep control. You decide what gets shared, when it gets shared, and how it gets shared. You protect the truth from being bent, stretched, or broken. And you save yourself from having to defend yourself against rumors you never asked for in the first place. It's not about living in secrecy. It's about living in dignity, about understanding that some things are worth keeping close because they lose their value the moment they're handled by too many hands. And the truth is, the less people know, the less they can twist. Your peace, your privacy, your truth, they're yours to protect. Because once they're gone, you don't just lose control over the story, you lose a piece of yourself. And that's a price you should never be willing to pay. Validation is one of the easiest traps to fall into, and most of the time, we don't even realize we're stepping into it. You're going through something hard, you're carrying it around, and you think, if I can just talk to someone and they tell me I'm right, I'm justified, I'm not crazy, then maybe I'll feel better. And for a moment you do. That nod of agreement, that, oh, wow, you're totally in the right here, feels good. It's like a little shot of emotional caffeine. It perks you up. But here's the danger, just like caffeine, that rush doesn't last. You end up chasing the feeling instead of chasing the solution. Every time the discomfort creeps back in, you look for another hit of validation, another friend to tell the story to, another sympathetic text, another social media post where people can pile into the comments saying, you're doing amazing, they're so wrong for treating you that way. And while all that's happening, the actual problem sits there, untouched, unresolved, collecting dust while you collect comfort. The truth is, validation is addictive because it gives you the reward without the work. It lets you feel like progress is happening when it's not. And over time, it can train you to avoid the very things that would actually fix your situation: hard conversations, uncomfortable truths, changing your own habits. Because those things don't feel as instantly rewarding as someone agreeing with you. And here's something most people don't talk about. The more you rely on validation, the weaker your ability to self-validate becomes. You start outsourcing your confidence to other people. You stop trusting your own judgment, because deep down, you've made it dependent on whether other people approve. That's a dangerous place to live, because the moment the validation stops, you crash. And if you've built your emotional stability on other people's words, you'll find yourself spiraling the second you don't get them. You might not even realize you're doing it. You might just think you're getting things off your chest or talking it out. But if you're telling the same story over and over and nothing about your circumstances is changing, that's not venting, that's rehearsing. You're rehearsing your pain, keeping it alive, keeping it in focus. And the more you rehearse it, the harder it is to move past it. There's a difference between seeking understanding and seeking applause. Understanding is healthy. You share with someone who can give perspective, who can help you see angles you couldn't see on your own. Applause is different. It's just a feel-good echo of what you already believe. And if all you want is applause, you're not looking for change. You're looking for comfort in staying the same. I'm not saying you should never talk about what you're going through. I'm saying you have to be brutally honest with yourself about why you're talking about it. Are you trying to work toward a solution, or are you just trying to hear, "You're right," one more time? Because one will get you unstuck, and the other will keep you exactly where you are, just a little more numb to it. When you learn to validate yourself, when you can say, "I know what I experienced, I know what I feel, and I don't need everyone else to approve it for it to be real," you take your power back. You stop relying on temporary hits of reassurance, and you start building the kind of quiet, unshakable confidence that doesn't need a crowd. Because at the end of the day, comfort is easy to find, but change is what will set you free. Your energy is like currency. You spend it where your mind is focused. And when you keep talking about your problems over and over again, you're spending all your energy inside the problem instead of on the way out of it. You might not even realize it, but every conversation where you replay the same frustration, every moment you sit in that mental loop, you're feeding it. You're keeping it alive. It's like watering weeds. You can tell yourself you're just processing or working through it. But if all you're doing is revisiting the same details without moving forward, you're not processing, you're planting roots in it. And the deeper those roots go, the harder it becomes to pull yourself out. Think about it. The more you talk about how wrong something is, how unfair it is, how stuck you feel, the more your mind reinforces that reality. You start to identify with the problem. It becomes part of your story, your identity. You go from, "I'm going through something," to, "This is just who I am now." And that shift is dangerous because once you believe the problem defines you, you stop looking for a way beyond it. But here's the thing. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a real moment and a vividly remembered one. If you keep reliving the same argument, the same betrayal, the same loss, your body reacts like it's happening right now. The tension, the anger, the anxiety, it all gets triggered again. And that cycle will drain you faster than anything else. When you stop talking about the problem to everyone who will listen, you create space for something powerful: silence. Not the kind of silence that ignores reality, but the kind of silence that allows your energy to shift from complaint to creation. That's when you start asking yourself different questions, not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What can I do with what's happening?" It's like being in a room with a fire. You can either keep talking about how bad the smoke smells, how hot it is, how dangerous it looks, or you can start looking for the extinguisher. The more you stay focused on describing the fire, the bigger it feels. The more you focus on how to put it out, the smaller it becomes. Energy is contagious, too. When you surround yourself with people who hear you only in your problem mode, they start feeding into that energy. They might even join in, adding fuel to your frustration without offering a single real step forward. But when you shift into solution mode, you'll notice something. Not everyone comes with you. That's because some people are drawn to the drama, not the resolution. And if you're serious about protecting your energy, you have to be willing to leave those people behind. There's also something freeing about realizing you don't have to explain yourself to everyone. You don't owe the world a play-by-play of your challenges. The less time you spend justifying or complaining, the more time you have to actually change your reality. And that change takes energy. Every ounce you spend repeating the problem is an ounce you can't spend fixing it. And the truth is, the more energy you put into moving forward, the faster the weight of the problem starts to fade. You stop living in reaction, and you start living in intention. Because when your energy is aimed at the solution instead of the struggle, you don't just survive the problem, you outgrow it. Privacy isn't just about secrecy, it's about protection. When you keep certain things to yourself, you're not being cold, distant, or mysterious for no reason. You're protecting your power. The less people know about your struggles, the less they can use them to define you, judge you, or manipulate you. And that's not paranoia, that's wisdom. The moment you hand over your private battles to just anyone, you give them access to parts of you they haven't earned the right to hold. You're putting your vulnerabilities into the hands of people who may not value them, respect them, or understand the weight of what you've shared. And here's the hard truth. Not everyone wants what's best for you. Some people want what's interesting about you, and unfortunately, what's interesting is often the very thing that hurts. When you keep your personal challenges private, you keep control over your own narrative. You get to decide how people see you, not through the lens of your current struggle, but through the lens of your character, your consistency, and your actions. Because if you're not careful, your hardships become your reputation. People stop seeing the whole of you and start seeing you only through the lens of that one situation you told them about. And sometimes people will use your openness as leverage. They might not do it right away. They might hold on to your words, keep them stored, and then pull them out in a moment when it benefits them, not you. It could be in an argument, a negotiation, or even just in a conversation where they want the upper hand. That's why privacy is power. When people don't know everything, they can't control the narrative. It's also worth saying, when you share too much, too often, people start to lose respect for you. They start to see you as someone who can't hold their own, someone who's always in a crisis, someone whose life is an open book for anyone to read. And while you might think openness builds connection, the wrong kind of openness can actually push people away. Respect grows when you show that you have the self-control to hold your cards close, to deal with challenges without needing to broadcast them. Keeping things private doesn't mean you handle life alone. It means you're intentional about who you trust. You know the difference between the friend who will sit in the mud with you until you're ready to climb out, and the one who's only curious about how deep the mud goes. You share with the first type, and you keep your distance from the second. And here's something else. Privacy gives you room to grow without an audience. When you work through something quietly, you're free to make mistakes, change your mind, and figure things out without the pressure of everyone watching and weighing in. You get to rewrite your story before anyone else gets a say in it. That kind of space is priceless because it lets you come back stronger without having to defend every step you took along the way. The truth is, there's a quiet confidence in privacy. It tells the world, I don't need you to see every chapter to know I'm writing a good story. And when you learn to live like that, you stop feeling the need to prove yourself in the middle of the storm. You just focus on making it out of the storm. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is keep your life in your own hands. The right people don't need every detail to show up for you. They don't need the full backstory, the play-by-play, or a list of all the ways you've been wronged. They just know you well enough to recognize when you're not okay, and they care enough to stand beside you anyway. That's how you know you've got the right circle. They don't show up because they're curious. They show up because they're committed. There's a difference between someone who wants the story and someone who wants to be part of the solution. The first type will ask question after question, wanting all the drama, all the twists, All the little pieces of information that satisfy their curiosity. The second type, they might not ask much at all. They just say, "I'm here. What do you need?" And those words carry more weight than any long conversation could. When you're selective about who you share with, you'll notice something. Your real friends don't need convincing. They don't need you to explain why you're hurt, why you're quiet, why you're not yourself. They trust you enough to know that if you're pulling back, there's a reason. And instead of pushing for details, they offer presence. That kind of trust is rare, and when you have it, you don't take it for granted. The truth is, not everyone has earned the right to your vulnerability. Some people haven't shown they can carry their own problems, let alone yours. And when you hand your struggles to them, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. But the people who have proven themselves over time, through their consistency, through the way they've handled your trust in the past, those are the ones you can lean on without fear. You'll also find that the right people respect your boundaries. If you say, "I'm not ready to talk about it," they don't take offense. They don't guilt you into sharing more than you want to. They just make sure you know they're available whenever you are. And that's because their goal isn't to be entertained by your pain. It's to see you through it. One of the most powerful things you can realize is that real support doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't require you to spill every detail to be believed or to be helped. Sometimes, all it takes is a single sentence, "I'm having a rough time right now," and the right person will step in with comfort, encouragement, or even just silence that feels safe. When you build a circle like that, you stop feeling the need to broadcast your problems to everyone else. You're not chasing sympathy anymore because you know you have real understanding where it matters. And the best part, those people will never make your problems bigger than they are. They won't feed into the drama or keep you stuck in the story. They'll help you find your way out of it. Life gets a lot lighter when you realize you don't need the whole world to understand what you're going through. You just need the right few people who will stand in your corner, even if they don't know the whole fight. And when you find them, you protect those connections because they're worth more than gold. Because in the end, it's not about how many people know your struggle, it's about how many will help you carry it.